After years of rumors, Richard Rawlings is finally telling the truth. The Fast and Loud star says he's been hiding a dark secret that explains why all of his marriages failed, why he sold all of his cars all of a sudden, and why Discovery really canceled his show at age 55. He's finally ready to tell the truth about what happened in that $6 million legal battle, and trust us, it's much worse than anyone thought. Richard Rawlings was born on March 30, 1969, in a working-class area of Fort Worth, Texas. Richard's world revolved around cars long before he became famous on TV, and a huge businessman in the auto industry. One of the earliest pictures of him is him as a small boy sitting proudly in a pedal-powered Volkswagen Beetle. It wasn't just a toy, it was a glimpse of what was to come. While most kids watched cartoons on Saturday mornings, Richard had a different schedule. At 3 a.m., when most of the city was still asleep, he'd get up and go deliver newspapers with his dad. Richard did the same thing for the afternoon edition. On the weekends, he'd ride his bike from house to house collecting payments. What stood out during those rounds wasn't just the money, it was the cars. He started to notice every single one and knew which house had which make, model, and year. Some customers were surprised by how much he knew, but his answer was always the same. "I ride by your house twice a day most days of the week, how wouldn't I?" Richard's father worked 2 or 3 jobs and always made sure he had one thing for himself, like a car or a motorcycle. That one toy was his reward, and that lesson stuck with him. He learned that if you wanted something special, you had to work for it. By the time he was 14, Richard had saved enough money from years of newspaper routes to buy his first car, a green 1974 Mercury Comet. Most kids dreamed about turning 16, but Richard was already driving well not. The Comet wasn't just a ride, it was a statement at school. He'd do donuts in the parking lot to show what it could do, and his classmates still talk about it, even though it was an ugly green color. He thought it was the coolest car ever made. Things moved quickly after that. By his senior year in 1987, he had already bought his third car, a black 1977 Bandit Trans Am that looked like it came straight out of Smokey and the Bandit. It made him the go-to car guy at Eastern Hills High. He wasn't just showing off at school, he was also buying, fixing, and selling cars. Before he graduated, he had already flipped about 20 different cars, making more money doing that than most teens did with part-time jobs, and he wasn't guessing. He had an eye for finding deals, making them better just enough, and getting people to pay more than he did. This was the basis for everything that came later. In the early 1990s, when he was only 22, Rawlings was driving a 1965 Ford Mustang 2+2. Richard was driving a Fastback, a classic muscle car with the kind of roofline that car collectors dream about, when he was attacked by carjackers while driving through a rough area near Oakland Boulevard in Fort Worth. He fought back, and one of the thieves shot him in the shoulder and down his left arm. He survived, and even though it could have made him give up on car culture forever, it only made him more determined. From 1988 to 1990, before the tattoos, fame, and the garage, Richard wore 3 different uniforms. His dad always told him, get a good job with benefits, stay loyal, and retire with a gold watch. Richard listened, at least at first. But things changed in 1988, when he was delivering Miller Lite to a local bar, and a regular, whom he thought was just another drunk, asked him what he wanted to do with his life. Richard said he wanted to be a police officer, but he said he couldn't. The man looked at him and said, "Damn it, I'm within 17 days. Richard was accepted into the North Texas Police Academy. He worked as a police officer in Alvarado, and then as a firefighter in Capel. He did a lot of different jobs, and learned how to stay calm when things went wrong. These crisis management skills would later help him in business. But by the time he was 25, he wanted a change, so he sold everything he owned and bought a Jeep. He drove to California to start something new, but after 6 months, he was broke. He was sleeping on his sister's couch, had tattoos, pierced ears, and no Jeep, because it had been repossessed. That low point didn't break him, it made him realize he needed to start his own business. That's when he started Lincoln Press in 1999, a printing and advertising company in Dallas. He didn't know much about printing, but he did know a lot about branding, so he got a $100,000 small business loan to get started. Within 5 years, Lincoln Press was booming, and in 2004, he gave a Lamborghini Gallardo to the first customer, who spent $1 million. The stunt worked, and the company kept growing until he sold it. That sale gave him the money he needed to pursue his real dream cars. When Richard Rawlings opened Gas Monkey Garage in Dallas in 2002, things didn't exactly go as planned. The shop was small, and it didn't even have running water or air conditioning. It was built with money from the sale of his previous business, Lincoln Press. It was a rough start, but Rawlings had the drive but not the resources, so he and his small team kept going. Gas Monkey hit the road and went to car shows, trade shows and rallies all over the country, doing whatever it took to get his name out there. In May 2007, he and his friend Dennis Collins set out to break the Cannonball Run, which is one of the most famous records in the history of cars. The record, which was set in 1979, was 32 hours and 51 minutes, which is how long it took to drive from New York City to Los Angeles without stopping. The record had been held for almost 30 years, until May 12, 2007. In 2007, Rawlings and Collins decided to give it a try. They skipped the planned Bull Run rally route from Montreal to Key West and went straight for the record. They drove a modified Ferrari 550 Maranello with extra fuel tanks so they wouldn't have to stop as often. They left Manhattan at night and got to the Portatunian in Rundo Beach in just 31 hours and 59 minutes. They broke a record that had stood for 28 years and averaged 87 hours. Not everyone believed it at first. Some questioned the route or compared it to the original runs, but the accomplishment stood out. It was brave, it was dangerous, and it was real enough to get Rawlings a personal nod from Jay Leno, a moment that meant more than most people realized. Jay Leno isn't just a car guy, he's the car guy. His garage is full of hundreds of classic and rare cars, and he has a lot of respect in the automotive world. It wasn't just praise that Leno gave Rawlings for breaking the Cannonball Run record, it was a strong stamp of approval. This was years before Fast and Loud made Rawlings famous, but that nod from Leno helped give him serious credibility in the car world, and Rawlings needed that credibility between 2002 and 2012. Getting Gas Monkey off the ground wasn't easy. He put every dollar he had into the business and worked out of a garage with no running water, air conditioning, or even enough tools to get by. Finding good mechanics was hard because they had to fight to keep the business going. Every project was a risk that had to be earned by every customer. At that time, Rawlings started pitching his idea for a show. He wanted to bring car restoration to a wider audience, not just car fans, but also families, kids, and anyone who liked a good story with some horsepower behind it. But networks didn't bite. They thought the idea was too niche or too risky, so while he waited for a chance, he kept pushing the brand by going to more car shows. It took a while, but it built something strong. By the time Discovery finally said yes in 2012, the name Gas Monkey was already well known in the car community. When Fast and Loud premiered on June 6, 2012, no one knew it would turn a Dallas garage into a global brand. Richard Rawlings was at the center of it all. Before the cameras came out, he was just a guy running Gas Monkey Garage. After the show took off, he became a face known in over 200 countries. The show wasn't just a hit in the US, translated into 13 languages, which made Rawlings a major player in the entertainment world almost overnight. The idea behind the show was simple but powerful. Rawlings and his team looked for forgotten classic cars, most of which were broken or barely running. They brought the cars back to life, polished them up, and then sold them for a profit. But what made Fast and Loud stand out was its tone. Other shows leaned toward heavy drama or niche audiences, but Rawlings said that both kids and grandparents could enjoy it. He didn't want to make just another car show. He wanted it to be fun and fast-paced, and he wanted everyone to feel welcome watching it. His plan worked. Viewers got hooked on the cars, the builds and the energy. But the real turning point came when Rawlings used his success to go beyond TV. He opened Gas Monkey restaurants, clothing lines, energy drinks, tequila vodka, and more. The garage was still there, but it was now the base for something much bigger. By 2020, Rawlings had the show ended on June 8, 2020, after 16 seasons and 155 episodes, but the empire was stronger than ever. The show's success was due to what Rawlings called his cash money formula. He would travel across the country, looking for classic cars that were in bad shape, and then use tough negotiations and quick cash to close deals quickly. Sometimes he would bring thousands of dollars with him just to get a seller to say yes on the spot. He once said, "You can always buy a $10,000 car. If you have $5,000 to spare, I'll buy any car." That line wasn't just good for TV, it was his real-life strategy, and it worked. One of the best examples of the formula in action was a Dodge Challenger that Rawlings bought for just over $40,000. The team spent $77,000 restoring it and adding unique upgrades and features. When the car was sold, it went for $150,000, a profit of $73,000. It wasn't just luck, it was the result of good judgment, smart spending, and a deep understanding of what buyers wanted. Also, what made Fast and Loud unique was Rawlings' willingness to take risks. He often bought rusty, frame-damaged cars that looked like they had been ignored for decades. Even his own team sometimes questioned his choices, but Rawlings could see potential that others missed. For example, he bought a supercar for $400,000, even though it had major mechanical problems from a failure with the previous owner. Gas Monkey Garage fixed it up, and after the rebuild, the car sold for a huge profit. The show became known for its high-stakes gambles. The rusty cars weren't just about money, they added drama and depth to the show. Each car had a story, and each restoration had problems that had to be solved. Viewers could see how much time, money, and effort went into the changes. Some builds didn't go as planned, and some took longer than expected. Not every car made a profit, but that was part of the appeal. It showed the risk behind the reward, and gave people a real look at the business side of car restoration over time. It ran from June 2012 to June 2020, which is 8 years of builds, flips, and crazy road trips. By season 4, the show had found its groove. That season added tight deadlines, unexpected problems, and last-minute repairs that made things more exciting. Viewers never knew if the team would finish a car on time, or if the deal would fall through. This mix of pressure and payoff kept people watching. But in 2020, Rawlings made a big decision on the Joe Rogan Experience. He said that he was leaving the show. He ended his contract with Discovery because he wanted more creative freedom and didn't want to be limited by contracts that said what he could do next. Leaving the network was risky, but it also opened up new opportunities. Since then, Rawlings has continued to build his brand through YouTube, new media projects, and the continued success of Gas Monkey Garage. Richard Rawlings was already well known in the automotive world, but in 2013, he decided to take his brand beyond cars and engines. He opened the first Gas Monkey Bar and Grill in Northwest Dallas in September. It was built on the site of the old Firewater Bar and Grill and was 19,000 square feet. It wasn't just a restaurant, it was also a music venue, a bar, and an attitude. The venue could hold up to 1,200 people, and Rawlings made sure to hire people with real experience to run it. As general manager, he hired Alex Mendanza, who had run the House of Blues in Las Vegas, and David Hollister was hired to shape the food. The American rock band Old 97s played the first live show there 2 days before the official opening. The place had style and energy from the start. By March 2014, Rawlings was ready to go bigger. He opened a second Gas Monkey Bar and Grill, this time in Terminal D at Dallas-Fort Worth International Airport. It was a smart move because people going through one of the busiest airports in the country could now get food, listen to music, and try the Gas Monkey brand. Rawlings even talked about wanting a third location outside of the Dallas-Fort Worth area. He wasn't just trying something new, he was building something. The bar and grill became more than just a restaurant. It became a place where people from all walks of life, including those interested in cars, music, and nightlife, could meet. Later that same year, in October 2014, Rawlings took things to the next level by opening Gas Monkey Live, which was 38,000 square feet and could hold 3,000 people before Rawlings took it over. The venue used to be Toby Keith's I Love This Bar and Grill, but he turned it into a full-scale concert hall designed for big shows and big crowds. On the first night, punk rock legends Social Distortion played, and from then on, it started attracting big acts and high-profile events. One of the most talked about events was when the Mudvayne crew played a free concert there, as part of their All Bad Things Must End tour, in November 2014. The event was called Dodge Rocks Gas Monkey, and only Dodge owners were allowed to attend. The event wasn't just a concert, it was also a show for Dodge's newest models, like the Charger SRT Hellcat and the Challenger SRT Hellcat. The whole night was a mix of speed, sound, and spectacle. Gas Monkey Live also hosted private events, VIP parties, and corporate functions. It had green rooms and flexible spaces that made it easy to use for more than just music. Even with all of its success, the venue ran out of money in May 2020 when the COVID-19 pandemic forced it to close. It was impossible to keep going, and the closing marked the end of a brave chapter in Rawlings' push into live entertainment. But that didn't stop him from following his dreams. In 2014, the same year Gas Monkey Live opened, Rawlings became the national spokesperson for Dodge. Suddenly, his face was everywhere, and commercials showed him talking about Dodge while driving. He was well known from Fast and Loud, and was now helping Dodge sell cars all over the country. The Dodge Rocks were one of the most memorable parts of this relationship. Gas Monkey concert at his own venue. It was the right mix of his love of cars, music, and a well-known brand all in one night. The deal helped Dodge connect with car fans, while giving as Rawlings' fame grew across the country, so did his influence in the auto industry. In 2019, he made another move. He started making energy drinks. Instead of starting from scratch, he licensed the Gas Monkey brand, which allowed him to keep control of the image, without having to pay for production. It was a smart move. Monkey Energy started out with 2 flavors, regular and light. The branding focused on speed, power, and excitement, which was the same energy Rawlings brought to everything he did. By January 2025, the brand added a 3rd flavor called Tropical, which was a mix of mango, passion fruit, pineapple, lemon, and honey. The drink didn't have any high fructose corn syrup or artificial additives, so it fit well with Rawlings' lifestyle of being bold, fast, and clean. The energy drinks were sold at convenience stores, online, and at major motorsports events. Richard Rawlings has always lived life in the fast lane, like the Indianapolis 500 and NH races. But while his career took off with roaring engines and TV fame, his personal life had a rougher patch before Fast and Loud and Gas Monkey Garage made him famous. Richard got married for the first time in 1993, when he was still trying to find his place in the automotive world. Karen K. Greens came into his life during those early uncertain days, and they got married that year, but the relationship didn't last. In 1994, they got divorced after being married for less than a year. Rawlings wasn't famous or in the spotlight, he was just a young man chasing his dream. Not much is known about Karen. She stayed out of the public eye, and their short time together was never in the news. But that first divorce set a pattern that showed how hard it was for him to balance his career and personal life. The pressure to build something big came at a cost, and that cost kept showing up. In 1999, he tried again, this time with Suzanne Marie Merrill. They got married in Las Vegas, at the same time that Rawlings was making progress with Gas Monkey Garage. Things were starting to work out professionally,
But personally, things were still tough because his business was growing quickly and he was traveling a lot. After 10 years, the relationship reached a breaking point and they divorced in 2009. For most people, that would have been the end of it, but Richard and Suzanne had a complicated relationship in 2015, 6 years after they broke up. They got back together in Cabo San Lucas, Mexico, and decided to give marriage another chance. It seemed like a good idea, a second chance after years of growing and changing, but it didn't last. In March 2019, Rawlings told the world on Twitter that he and Suzanne were splitting up. The message was direct and unusual. He said that news outlets like TMZ were already reporting on it, so he wanted to be the one to tell his fans. He also said that the decision was mutual, and that he and Suzanne still cared about each other. They were in a relationship for more than 20 years, but after a quick second divorce, Suzanne got a financial settlement. Rawlings paid her $300,000 in 2 parts, and she kept her Mercedes SL 450 Roadster. Despite everything, Richard spoke positively about their time together, saying that they had shared something real, even if it didn't last. 2 marriages, 2 divorces, with the same person both times. It showed how hard it was for him to balance his personal and professional life. Katerina Deason made headlines because she was married to Darwin Deason, a Texas billionaire, who sold his company's computer services to Xerox for $6 billion. Katerina had spent years living a life full of private jets, super yachts like Apogee, and unimaginable wealth, but in 2019, her life changed. She started dating Richard soon after he broke up with Suzanne, and on August 17, 2019, he proposed at the Tulum Resort in Mexico, filling the beach with roses, petals, and wrote on social media that he had found his true love. They got married on June 28, 2020, in Key West, Florida. The ceremony was small because COVID-19 had forced them to cancel the big wedding they had planned in Greece, but it was still a meaningful moment. Katerina had gone from being married to a billionaire to being married to a reality TV star. It was a big change, but one that seemed to fit her. In June 2018, something unexpected happened in the custom car world. The Monkey Bar and Grill, a popular spot in Dallas, filed for bankruptcy, shocked Gas Monkey fans and followers when the company sued its founder, Richard Rawlings, for defamation. The lawsuit said Rawlings was trying to get away from his business partners by what they called deliberate and deceptive attempts to avoid his contracts. The lawsuit was 47 pages long and full of details. It said the relationship had started to fall apart as early as May 2013, even before the bar opened. One former employee, Tim Hinkhouse, wrote an email back saying Rawlings was so mean to construction workers that he was banned from the site. At that point, a lot of people said that things between him and the team were already out of hand. Things didn't get better after the bar opened later that year. According to the lawsuit, Rawlings kept showing up without permission, bothering staff, and trying to make decisions, which made the workplace toxic. Things finally broke down in 2015, when in a serious email to Daniel Flitty, the managing member of the bar, Rawlings said that important financial records were missing. Flirty quickly replied and invited Rawlings to check the records in person, but Rawlings refused, saying that he didn't think the records existed at all. On July 18, 2015, Flirty wrote back to remind Rawlings that he had always been welcome to audit the books. That email was used as evidence in court, and Rawlings eventually admitted to the theft. He said sorry for his actions and blamed drinking, but Flirty and the rest of the team were already hurt. The lawsuit said Rawlings' actions had scared off vendors and business partners, which hurt the bar's reputation and made it harder to keep things going. The problems didn't end there. In 2017, someone wanted to buy the Gas Monkey Bar brand, but Rawlings stepped in again and accused the buyer of financial mismanagement, which ruined the deal. On March 28, 2019, at 2:15 p.m., Rawlings filed a $1 million countersuit for copyright infringement, saying that the bar had kept using the Gas Monkey name and logos after their agreement ended. His team said that by late 2018, the licensing rights had expired and hadn't been renewed, but the bar kept using the brand. What made the case even more heated was Rawlings' claim that his brand was being used to promote lewd and sexually suggestive events, which he said hurt his reputation. About a month earlier, on February 25, 2019, Rawlings sent the bar a letter telling them to stop using the brand. He gave them 10 days to respond, and when they didn't, he filed the countersuit. His $1 million claim was based on lost licensing revenue and damage to the value of the Gas Monkey brand. At the time, rumors were going around that the bar was having money problems and that one of its sister venues, Gas Monkey Live, had closed. Some people thought Rawlings was trying to get rich by suing. Legal battles between Rawlings and his former partners caught the attention of both car fans and legal experts. The feud between Rawlings and his former partners turned into a messy public drama, and while the lawsuits went on, Rawlings was busy moving on. After Fast and Loud ended, he started a podcast called Monkey Trap, which gave him a chance to talk directly to fans and bring on guests from all kinds of fields. Cord Newman, a Hollywood stuntman, known for setting himself on fire during it, was another way for Rawlings to stay in the public eye. Then there were the cars. In September 2023, Rawlings did something brave. He auctioned off almost 30 cars from his personal collection through Bring a Trailer. The total sales were $1.8093. The cars included a 1962 Chevy Corvette that sold for $60,000, a 1965 Ford Mustang Fastback Cody that went for $75,000, and a rare 1993 Toyota Supra that brought in $121,000. The Supra was the best performing car of the auction. Rawlings said he was changing his focus from what he called beer budget cars to high-end European models. At the same time, he auctioned off a Gas Monkey garage experience for charity, which raised $16,500 for the Gas Monkey Foundation. With the money raised and the space freed up, Rawlings started rebuilding his collection. He said he would be focusing on Ferraris, Lamborghinis, and old European cars, especially ones from the 1970s and 1980s. One of his trips to Ireland, where he bought 5 Ferrari Testarossas, was converted into an electric vehicle that got a lot of attention at SEMA 2023. By early 2024, Rawlings had already put over $1 million back into his new direction. He wasn't just changing what he drove, he was also reinventing himself, going from a messy lawsuit to a collection of high-end Ferraris. His story keeps changing, and whether you like him or dislike him, there's no denying that Richard Rawlings knows how to stay in the spotlight.